Alright, it is I, Professor Sheehan, once again, and in this video we're going to talk about using compressors, specifically using them on dialogue tracks. If you check our class website, if you're watching this video as a member of my Sound for Visual Media class, you'll see that it actually says under the grading criteria, get that back here, dynamic range of dialogue is kept in control with compressors as necessary. And also up on our class website we have a handout on compressors which tells you what dynamic range is. It's just the volume difference between the loudest and quietest peaks in a recording. So if you have a dialogue track where the volume is fluctuating a lot, getting loud and quiet, and you've also got other things going on in the mix, such as music or some ambient sound or whatever you have, you can imagine that the dialogue might drift in and out of the mix. So a compressor can help you prevent that from happening. So the main thing a compressor does is reduces dynamic range, reducing the difference between loud and quiet, thereby evening out the levels. It also gives a track more headroom. So if you take the louder parts and reduce the louder parts, now you can turn the entire track up louder. And there's also a thing called ducking that you can do, but we're going to save that for another time because that's a little more advanced. But if you look on here, it tells you what the main controls do. The threshold ratio and output gain are the most important controls on a compressor, and then attack and release are for fine tuning. So let's take a look at that. Let's go back into Pro Tools, and the dialogue I have in here, at the moment at least, is in fact production sound from the video shoot. It's actually sound that was picked up by the video camera, which was so many feet away. So it might end up having to be replaced with ADR, but we'll see if we can work with it. You might remember in the last video I pointed out that on the music track, which is the green track here, I did a bit of a drop in volume so that we could hear the dialogue better. So you can hear it pretty decently. We'll give this a play. Buddy, what are you doing with that bat? I'll put the bat down. Look here, I got a nice, very special, very cherry. Try it. It'll make you feel much better. And it works out pretty well in that the music right there is mostly playing instrumental stuff. And it's, there's a little hey, hey, hey going on, but not like real lyrics going on there. There's some saxophone, which is a pretty high-pitched instrument that can get in the way of voice. So, I mean, I already dropped the volume, so if you were listening carefully, you could hear everything that that fine actor said there. But let's open this up on the track. We have a compressor. It is currently bypassed. I'm going to bypass it again. So I'll actually put it on from scratch. So if we take it off, you want to make sure your inserts are showing. We got inserts A through E showing here. If they are not showing, then whether you're in the mix window or the edit window, we're right now in the edit window, of course, you want to make sure inserts A through E is checked off. See, there go my inserts, so let's bring that back. So edit window views, inserts A through E, there we go. Now we have 5 inserts out of a possible 10 to put some plugins on. So compressors are going to be under the dynamics category, and we have actually quite a lot of compressors available on my laptop. We have the stock ones that come with Pro Tools, and we've got a bunch from the McDSP bundle. Since you might not have the McDSP plugins, I'm going to use the most basic stock compressor from Avid, which is the Dynamic 3 Compressor Limiter. Okay, so here we have those controls the handout talked about. We have threshold, gain, ratio, attack, and release. We also have something called the knee, which is a little weird. You don't find that on every compressor. Now, let's say you have no idea what you're doing. The good news is that there are presets. So if you go up where it says factory default, you'll see presets. A lot of them are for music, like drums and things like that. But then you have vocal compressor and vocal leveler, which could be for sung vocals, but also for dialogue. So let's try these two out. We'll turn on vocal comp. You notice that some of the settings moved around. One thing it did was it turned this gain up 8 decibels. So compressors, by their nature, cause you to lose volume because they're taking the louder stuff and lowering it in level. It's kind of like if you were going under a limbo bar at a party and the bar keeps getting lower and lower and you have to scrunch yourself down more to get under it. What a compressor does is it scrunches loud audio down. And the limbo bar is the threshold. So the threshold set at minus 30 dB, which means anything louder than minus 30 is gonna have to scrunch down to get under that limbo bar. So remember, 0 dB is the loudest you can have in digital audio. So this is 30 decibels below that. Anything quieter, or rather anything louder than minus 30 decibels, is going to get compressed. It's not going to get compressed that much because the ratio setting over here, 1.8 to 1, is not that high. Then again, the threshold's quite low. So we'll see how it works out. The thing is with compressor preset, they don't know how loud your audio is. So this threshold at minus 30 is kind of a random setting, and the gain is kind of random too. But let's see what it does.
Buddy, what are you doing with that bat? Oh, put the bat down. Look here, I got a nice, today's special. Very, very cherry. Try it.
Okay, now let's listen to it before the compressor. I'm going to bypass the compressor again.
Buddy, what are you doing with that bat?
And I think you can tell that it does sound clearer with the compressor on because the lower syllables are, brought up on more of an even level as the louder syllables. So let's try the vocal leveler setting. Similar threshold, similar gain. The ratio is higher on this one, 3 to 1. So that means basically you're going to get more compression. Let's check it out like this.
Buddy, what are you doing with that bat? Oh, put the bat down. Look here, I got a nice, today's special. Very, very cherry. Try it. It'll make you feel much better. And yeah, come on, give me the bat, all right? Don't clobber anyone with the bat today.
Okay, so that's not bad. I want to try the other preset, vocal compressor, on that last part. The last part's a little quieter.
And yeah, come on, give me the bat, all right? Don't clobber anyone with the bat today.
All right, let's turn the compressor off and listen to that line there. Yeah, so that definitely sounds better with a compressor on it. Of course, another trick we could do is we could separate the clip and turn this up a little bit with clip gain. And at the end there, I turned the compressor back on. Alright, so that works. If you want to learn what the different controls do a bit better, check out that handout that I have on Moodle. That's if you are in my class and not randomly watching this on YouTube. And it goes over what the controls do, and if you're kind of looking at that while you move them around, you'll get a sense. A key thing with compressors, a good visual guide is not this graph so much, which shows the orange line here is the threshold. This is pre-compressor, after compressor, depending on the volume. So the orange line's right at minus 30 on the graph, like it's set right here. But the key thing is to look at the gain reduction. And anytime you see gain reduction on this meter, that means that the compressor is doing its thing. So let's take a look at that. Let's play this again.
Buddy, what are you doing with that bat? Oh, put the bat down. Look here, I got a nice, today's special. Very, very.
And it's on a lot of the time because the threshold's pretty low, actually. Maybe it doesn't have to be that low. Let's turn it up a bit and see if it's ever not kicking in, even
Buddy,
for a
what
moment.
are you doing with that bat? Oh, put the bat down. Look here, I got a nice, today's special. Very, very cherry.
All right, let's get a little more compressed. Turn up the ratio a bit.
Buddy, what are you doing with that bat?
Yeah, I think
Oh,
that
put the
sounds
bat
better.
down. Look here, I got a nice, today's special. Very, very cherry. Try it.
And then the gain control is just to make up for lost gain, lost volume. So it's at 8 dB here. You can kind of set the gain by looking at the input and output meters on the left, and you generally want them to be even overall. Maybe a little louder on the output. It is a little louder on the output right now. So we're also just getting a help from a little extra volume coming from this. But that's basically how a compressor works. On musical instruments, there's a lot of other things to it. The attack and release are basically fading the compressor in and out. So as compression hits and then releases, you can set it to not be very abrupt so you don't notice it as much, make it more transparent. So for these presets, arguably the attack and release are maybe, the better settings that you're going to roll with. The knee is kind of a different way of making the compressor come and go gradually. It's arguably a little bit redundant than attack and release, just works a little bit differently. And as I said before, most compressor limiters don't have it on there. We can take a look at one of the others. Let's check out. Let's check out. I think this one is this a single band compressor? It didn't take it. Oh, it's taken it. Yeah, so this is McDSP compressor. Looks very different at first glance, but it's got the same basic controls. It does have a knee as well, and the threshold, the compression ratio, the attack, the release, and the output. So it basically does the same thing. It will sound a little different. Might have some different presets. So if we look at the vocal ones, a lot of this is obviously for music like rock, male vocal, but we have dialogue. So let's check out the dialogue leveler. And let's try that out, see how that sounds on it.
Buddy, what are you doing with that bat? Oh, put the bat down.
All right, this one's adding a lot of gain. The output gain is at 12. Let's put it at like 7 or 8 where the other ones were at.
Buddy, what are you doing with that bat? Oh, put the bat down. Look.
Now let's bypass this and see what it sounded like originally.
Buddy, what are you doing with that bat? Oh, put the bat down. Look here, I got a nice, today's special.
Okay, so again, it's still giving it a lot of extra volume. Just the way the settings are, the amount of compression that's going on, it doesn't need quite as much output gain.
Buddy, what are you doing with that bat? Oh, put the bat down. Look here, I got
I'm gonna get the input and output meters more even.
Feel much better. Yeah, come on, mute the bat, all right? Don't cooperate with that today.
And just give it a little extra output just to make sure it's going to be over the music.
Buddy, what are you doing with that bat? Oh, put the bat down. Look here, I got a nice, today's special. Very, very cherry. Try it.
I'm going to lower the threshold a little bit so it kicks in a little more easily.
Yeah, come on, mute the bat, all right? Don't cooperate with that today.
Okay, so that's basically it. So it'll probably help your dialogue tracks if you use some compression. And you can try out those presets and see how they work. And then you want to get a little more adventurous, you can study up on what the different controls do and mess around with them a bit, and you'll start to get a feel for it. All right, so we'll be back next time. I think we're going to probably talk about reverb. Oh yeah. Dan Sheehan out.